Welcome back, Billiken fans. It's Zach Miller and Peter Hale. It's the Midtown Madness Podcast. Before we get going, thank you guys so much for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Comment down below if anything comes up in this episode that you want to talk about. Anything that we talked about, anything we didn't talk about. Comment down below. But before we get going, it's season 5 of the Midtown Madness Podcast. Once again, we are brought to you by two men and a garden. Pete, show the people at home your shirt for those watching on YouTube.
Already. Okay.
Yes.
Here we go.
He's got the I Got Pickled at the Palooza 2024 Pickle Palooza presented by Two Men and a Garden. Yes. Two Men in a Garden is once again taking care of the financial situation of the podcast. We don't, we're not going to try to sell you some useless subscription service. Nothing like that. We're all about that local, great tasting salsa brought to you by Two Men in a Garden. Like I said, it's local. It tastes amazing, and they've got all the flavors to suit your individual salsa preferences. You can find many products at local grocery stores or online at twomeninthegarden.com. If you're particular about your salsa or your pickles, you want to head over to their website because that's where they will have the greatest selection. Follow them on social media at Two Men Salsa on Instagram and Twitter. Pete, let's talk a little men's basketball recruiting right in your wheelhouse to kick off the show.
Yeah, Zach, we've got a few developments this week. We've got a new offer out to Jalen Lawal, who's a 6'3", 195 point guard from Plano, Texas. He goes to iSchool of Louisville, Texas, and he plays AAU ball for Team Trey Young, which is an Adidas Three Stripes program. Strong, smart, well-rounded point guard. He plays at his own pace, really efficient in both his movements and his scoring. He gets to the rim, finishes with either hand. He's got quick hands on defense, gets a ton of steals. He's a nice passer. He's got good form as a shooter, which you like to see. Other offers so far: San Jose State, Tulsa, Florida Atlantic, Middle Tennessee, Boston, Northeastern, Niagara, Texas State, UC Riverside, Texas Arlington, and Abilene Christian. So bunch of offers, but I think we're getting in at kind of the top end of that group, probably getting in at a good time here. And look, 6'3", I know Schertz likes bigger point guards. These guys are still growing, so I think in the end he'll probably be about the right size for a Schertz point guard. But I like the offer, Zach. He's a nice looking player. People should find some video or check our Twitter feed, our X feed. We've got a little blurb on him that includes about minute and a half, 2-minute video on him as well.
This is no relation to Lawal from VCU.
No, he's from London, England. So he's not a relationship here. He's not from Texas.
By the way, I don't want to insult anyone here, but iSchool, that's not a real school. Like I can't look at the iSchool and take it seriously. I know it's a real school.
Yeah, it's the Louisville School of Science and Technology.
How do they get away with calling it the iSchool? Is that's sponsored by Apple?
I don't know. I looked at it to kind of figure out what it was, but yeah, man, I just don't know a whole lot about it at this point. We have offered a few, like 2 or 3 players who have gone there though, because we continue to recruit Texas. So it's definitely a program that we recruit, but yeah, I just don't know a whole lot about the school itself.
Let's see, Stu Durando, he's kind of the mouthpiece. We learned that early on in the Josh Schertz era, and of course Stu Durando continues to get the good of information.
He does, Zach. Maybe someday, we'll get a little nugget here and there.
I know they throw us a freaking bone.
Throw us a little bone here and there for real.
Yeah.
But Schertz told Stu that 10 players from the class of 25 are scheduled to visit SLU in the next 6 weeks. Now, he told them this a little under a week ago, so this has already started. It started with Jaden Vance, who we talked about last week. He was in town this past Thursday to Saturday, and the next player coming in is a 6'11" player named Jax Kerr. And then SLU has No commitments yet for this class, but Schertz said that hopefully out of these visits in the next few weeks, they would take 3, maybe 4 early commitments. So that's something to keep in mind. We said last week we know of 4 other visitors coming besides the 2 who have already been here or are that we've mentioned. Jordan Tillery, September 3rd to 5th, so that's this week. Isaiah Sealy, September 12th to 14th. Adriel Nyorha is September 26th. Dietrich Richardson, we don't know the date, and I know that makes some people nervous, but when we tweeted out this information, he liked our tweet. So that's a good sign that he's still coming. Just don't know the date yet. If I had to guess on 4 more to make it 10, I'd look at the recent offers. The guy we just offered, Lawal, maybe Jalen Cross, Luke Laskowski, maybe Abdu Yad. You know, if we're looking for some guys that we offered recently, it's going to be probably some combination of, you know, a couple of those guys and maybe a couple others. If I were just to guess who's coming, but I thought it was interesting, Zach, that they would take 3 to 4 commitments this early in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can get the guy that you're looking for, I think. Wait, we're on men. Why did I get to women? Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you can get your guy, go get him. Who cares when you get him?
Every argument now sort of devolves into, whether it's on, you know, Twitter, billikens.com or wherever, Discord, it's sort of like, is this too many? Should we be bothering with freshmen at all? And it seems like people are really hung up with, no, we're just recruiting the portal, or no, we should just recruit high school players. And it really, like, there's more than one way to build a roster, right? And you're going to have different success with every class. And I just don't want to get too hung up on like where the players are coming from. You just want the players that fit your system, fit your culture, have the right skill set, and you know, it's all about the right blend. You can't do it just with all one or the other.
I think the other kind of example of that is people who talk about local recruiting.
Yeah,
I think that's right. Kind of the same argument, right? Where you got to recruit local, you got to keep the guys home. Well, yeah, if there's a guy who fits your system and is talented enough, then absolutely lock his ass down.
Yeah, and there's going to be some guys who just aren't going to stay home. There are going to be guys who maybe would be good players, but just aren't going to fit, you know, your needs at the time, your culture, your roster, whatever. And then there are going to be guys that make sense and are a good fit and want to come there. So it's just not that simple. You can't build a totally local roster, because that's always going to mean that there are some local kids who are riding the bench too, and that gets a little more complicated.
I feel like we've come a long way from like back in the day. Well, we can't comment on anything, and now we're getting it direct from the horse's mouth. Who's visiting?
Yeah, and I don't think he's not saying specific names. I don't think he can do that. But fully acknowledging, like, yeah, we've got a visitor, and it's really easy to find out who that is, you know. Maybe when he says there's 10 coming, we weren't able to get all 10 figured out, but I think we probably will in the next couple of weeks here. You're right, it is different. The other thing I noticed, Zach, is, and this is true of all sports, when they get new commitments, they are saying like, hey, we got a new commitment. And then once that player puts on Instagram or Twitter or whatever that they've committed to SLU, they're reposting it.
Yes.
And that's something that I don't think you could do before.
I think it was always that you could retweet, but you couldn't, this is the saddest conversation I've ever had. Like the idea that you have to have rules about which button on a computer you click.
Yeah, well, you just can't comment on it, right?
Right, correct. Yeah. So you can retweet it, but you can't like make any sort of.
And I think it was enough of a gray area before to where we really weren't even seeing retweets or reposts. It just I don't know whether they were explicitly forbidden from doing it or just didn't know whether that was acceptable or not, because it's like kind of coming through them. But it is a much different approach. I mean, like, we'll get into this in women's soccer. They're flat out saying, oh, we've got a player out of Texas. Oh, we've got another local player staying home. That's like, and they're not saying their names,
Yeah.
but they're kind of giving you enough information to like go figure out who it might be.
Yeah, it's a whole new world. And I mean, as we saw, I think it was on three started mentioning that the NCAA is considering adding just a
Yeah,
fifth year to eligibility, including a
right.
red shirt. So what's
It's
that, 6 years?
it's like, well, there if you stay, I think you only get the if you stay at the same place, you get the extra year. Is that what it is,
I
or are
don't
they
know.
just talking about adding it on completely? Yeah, I mean
It's
it's
set from the tweet, and of course, again, we're talking about short form news here.
yeah, yeah, right.
It
Well,
sounded like it was just a blanket.
NCAA is considering historic changes to amateurism rules, including permitting athletes in all sports, not only football, to play in a fifth year and preserve their red shirt, to earn prize money before college, and to eliminate the NLI. So yeah, those are all pretty big changes. It's almost like they're making the COVID year, that bonus year, permanent, and like everybody's going to get it forever. So it's just gonna we just need to reshape our thinking that it's a
Gibson
5 year.
Jimerson, you have another year of eligibility.
I don't know if it's retroactive. I don't know if it'll apply, to people who have already exercised
That
the
would
next
be
year.
hilarious.
It,
They add it and they don't include a clause,
right,
and
right,
he just gets a
yeah,
seventh year.
that, yeah. We will sue if we have to. Right? You didn't
Dude,
say we couldn't.
I mean, brother, like
Yeah,
that's get like people are gonna just start. That's like it's you just there right now. We're in this cycle of like you can literally sue the NCAA into changing any rule you want.
yeah. I think they're kind of realizing that they have nothing left to stand on, and nobody in Congress willing to help them out anymore, to back them up. They're just not winning. They're not winning in court. They're not winning anywhere. It's going to be interesting though. Circling back to Schertz though, Zach. As members of the class of 2025 start visiting SLU, he said this about NIL considerations.
Mm-hmm.
With freshmen, it's pretty easy. We just give a base amount. There's no wiggle room on that. If that becomes an issue, then we just don't recruit you. So my questions for you is, number one, how do we feel about that method? And number two, do we believe him?
I mean, there's no wiggle room. I mean, if you reached out to a 5-star top 10 prospect and he said, "Hey, uh, this is what I'm looking at," I think you go fire up the old fax machine and send Doc Shafitz a little,
Yeah.
you know, I,
So
I think you go get them. You try to go get them. I think, like again, we talked about the recruiting and how whether you take freshmen or you take portal guys, it's the same with this one. I think, yeah, I think in 98% of the time, you're gonna sit here and say, this is the base amount. That's all you get. Now, you find a guy that's super special, that's interested, and you're in the battle.
right.
I don't see any reason to, have stick to your guns there.
So we don't even have to really think of a hypothetical, because one of the names we've already mentioned of a guy visiting is kind of possibly an interesting test case here, and that's Isaiah Sealy, who's coming on September 12th to 14th. Now, he's from Arkansas, and very recently, the big state
Yeah.
program with John Calipari as the head coach and some boosters who are billionaires with a B, like
Yeah.
very and
Tyson.
shown very publicly that they're willing to throw money at this program. That's the Walmart money state. It's the Tyson family state. I mean, like there's money to be had at the University of Arkansas. And if Calipari says, come play for us as a freshman, we're obviously they're going to be a pretty loaded team and there's no guarantee on minutes and things like that. But here's what we can offer you. It's my guess is probably going to be a bigger number than whatever SLU's baseline freshman number is, right?
Oh, yeah.
So the only way SLU wins that battle is either to match and say, oh, by the way, we think you're good enough to, play this kind of role on our team,
Yeah.
and the other way to win that is say, hey, we can't match that, but you're going to be the guy from day one. And sophomore year, that baseline, that freshman baseline is gone. And we'll spend big to retain you at that point. So it's going to be a matter of whether a player can take that leap of faith or if SLU is willing to sort of bend in certain situations.
You're kind of, I mean, you're giving them a player, you're giving a player an opportunity to bet on themselves. I don't necessarily, yeah, you're giving a chance for the player to bet on themselves. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I necessarily, again, agree with that route. I think when you're Josh Schertz and you have recent success and a lot of juice behind your programs and
Mhm.
your career, your coaching career, you have the the freedom and the ability to say that.
Yeah.
Whereas a guy on the downward trajectory of his coaching tenure at a place like a Travis Ford or a Dana Ford or like those types, they don't have the luxury of saying, hey, take it or leave it, buddy.
Right. They just got to
You don't
make
have anything to offer them. You're
right.
the only thing you can offer them for certain is money. You definitely can't offer them with any certainty that you're going to win.
Sure. Yep. That's an excellent
I don't
point.
know if I'm just off the rails, but
No, I think a first year coach on the come up definitely is in a much different
yeah,
situation than like, I just need to see if this works,
yeah,
in my, once your seat gets hot, you do whatever it takes.
yeah. And when you have, again, you look at that kind of recruiting, it's a different recruiting philosophy uh, in itself. It's the same as Rick Majerus, right? It's that same where I'm looking for the right guy, not necessarily the best guy. And whereas Ford looking for the best talent is going to have to pay a premium for that talent. If you're looking for the right guy, you can find, guys that are willing to accept that freshman minimum.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, there's,
but I don't think it's a hard line. I have no doubts that if it really came down to 100 grand, not 100 grand, but like, if it came down to, again, paying somebody the sum of 100 grand, not like
Mhm.
100 gram difference, I think you would, if Schertz thought they were that important, yeah, I think he'd go. I think they'd bend.
The other thing is when you look at our incoming freshmen this year, it's probably true, right? Like
Yeah.
like these there weren't like 4 and 5 star guys here, and the schools that we were competing with were schools that we can already compete with, even in the old pre-NIL landscape. So it's probably true of this class. How true it is every year moving forward, it remains to be seen, and maybe we'll never know. But I thought it was interesting nonetheless.
Yeah. Let's talk a little scheduling, Pete. The Billikens will play an exhibition games against Rockhurst and Maryville on October 18th. Pete, we knew about this, and now seeing it in kind of set in stone, it's really kind of bumming me out.
Well, the exhibition games to me, like, we knew they needed a couple more dates, right? Like they
Yeah.
just needed the regular season was set already. So we knew they would play 1 or 2 exhibition games and probably 2 based on the number of games that they'd already had. And I'm fine with it because no matter who the rest of the opponents were, it was always going to be this, right? So I'm, they're both relatively local. We've played them in exhibitions before, the lower division schools. Rockhurst, obviously a lot of us remember for the injury to Javante Perkins. So there's some little bit of pain with that one, but um, it doesn't matter. We were going to play these kind of games anyway. So he did say, Schertz said, next year he's hoping for a schedule that allows for a close scrimmage or a charity exhibition game. So that probably tells you that they would be looking for a different shape to the non-conference schedule. That would mean probably 1 exhibition game and then something that's either charity or behind closed doors. And then you'd have your non-conference schedule. So it's kind of this year just the, maybe the least of what they would have wanted out of the non-conference schedule that they could scrape together. But I got to think it's going to be a lot different moving forward.
By the way, I thought Rothstein had the dumbest tweet ever about these closed door or these charity games
Yeah.
and how they should all be streamed. And I'm like, buddy,
Yeah.
Do we want people to go and donate to charity or no? What are we doing here?
The only way that makes sense is if you charge for the stream.
Yeah.
Which is like say
charge $1. Charge
come
$1.
Come in person and it's 10, 15, $20 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then for the stream, maybe $5 or something
Not
like that.
even $1,
I mean, what kind of volume are you expected on that stream?
Yeah.
For $1, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I think the only way putting it on TV matters is obviously if it sells out.
Right.
Yeah,
I guess
it would have to be a sellout, but anyway.
Yeah. No, I agree with you though. That kind of defeats the purpose.
Women's basketball, they got a new 2025 commitment. Josiah Wallace, 6'1" forward from Centralia High School, Brad Bill Elite. Earl called her one of the best athletes on either side of the river. She's got nice length as well and is a great shot blocker with instincts and good timing. She's effective in transition, finishes, gets offensive rebounds, lots of putbacks, can put it on the floor in the high post, tons of upside. Apparently a good volleyball player too, Pete.
Yeah, and at 6'1", right?
Yeah.
So other offers we knew about Bradley Semo, UT Martin. She may have had more, not sure. But I think this is one that you get as an incoming freshman and look like a genius down the road if she continues to progress and pan out like Earl and some others think she might. So really nice get for Coach Tillett and the women's basketball program.
Pete, I think before we move on, I think we need to stop in real quick on Sarah Adam. I think we need to talk a little bit about her quest for a gold medal at the Paralympic Games with the United States wheelchair rugby team. They are playing for the gold medal tomorrow. And I am trying to figure out the time. It says 19:30. I assume that is Paris time. And I think it's 12:30 Central time. But I am not sure.
I think you're right. I think that's right.
Japan is the only team to have beaten the United States in this tournament so far. They kind of took them to the woodshed in the fourth quarter of that game. But Sarah Adam has been playing great, Pete.
She really has. I've been really impressed by this performance, Zach. I mean, like we knew, like just to have her on the team was such a big deal. We knew they were going to be a medal contender. Like she told us, like that they fully expected to be in contention for that. But to see her out there, like scoring, like getting on the board, like making stuff happen. She is an absolutely fearless player. It's amazing. I'm like giddy thinking about it, like watching this stuff, seeing the highlights. It's been really an incredible ride. And man, it would be so cool to see her bring a gold medal back to SLU.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my God. That would be fantastic. I'm trying to find the stats on these games. Bear with me if I can try to, see like
this website is not great.
No, you're on the Olympics.com.
Yeah. And
Sarah Adams had six tries in game one against Canada, which is the big rivalry that was documented in Murder Ball.
Yep.
And then in game two, the loss to Japan, it's a 45-42 loss. She had 9 tries, which was second only to Chuck Aoki, the leading scorer and kind of the talisman for this team. And then let's go to game 3. That was Germany against the United States. And Sarah scored 13 tries in that one. Once again, second leading scorer next to Aoki, who is like this game is so crazy because the goals are either like ho hum. You're like, well,
Yeah.
where's the defense?
Right.
Or it's like that was incredible teamwork.
Yes.
But they just beat Great Britain today in the semifinals, 50-30, 50-43. The games are super high scoring and they're super close until the fourth quarter. And that's when
Yeah.
they all seem to go about 4 to 5 goals. Spread between the two teams. But she had 13 tries in this one. She was third leading scorer on the team. Josh Wheeler scored 14. But yeah, it's awesome. They're gonna play again Japan tomorrow. The only team that has beaten them, so they will be on the hunt for revenge.
Yeah, and it's today, Labor Day, as you listen to this,
Yes.
that the games will be happening. And you're right, I did verify it's 1:30 Eastern, 12:30 Central that this game will be going off. So get in front of a screen on Labor Day for this. Man, again, at the very worst, she's bringing a silver medal home, and she was one of the leading scorers on the U.S. team.
Yeah. I talked about hunting there, and I think I know what you're gonna do after we finish up recording. And I think you're gonna go hunting in the refrigerator for some 2 Men in a Garden pickles to kind of the post podcast snack.
So you're wrong about one thing, Zach, is that I'm not going to be hunting for the pickles, but maybe the salsa because I'm out of the pickles. But what I've done for the first time, actually, so I did the pickling pouch. I had some baby cucumbers in there. They're really small ones that they have at my local Kroger, and threw those in, and I got through all of those. And what I've never done before is to reuse the bag. They say you can reuse it up to 3 times. Just top it off with a little extra liquid, and so I'm trying that for the first time. Yeah. So I threw in some more baby cucumbers this time, cut them up in different ways. And I'm going to see how they are on the reuse batch, if they turn out the same way. But I did buy quite a few extras at the store this week, so I'm probably going to have what I need to do is have a couple pouches going at the same time. So while one is fermenting, I can open up and enjoy the other and not just have to wait until I'm out and start over and wait, a few days. So I'm going to have a little bit of an ongoing thing happening in the back of the fridge with these pouches. But I really strongly recommend that you try them yourself. Head over to twomeninthegarden.com, grab these pickling pouches and just start experimenting. I've had great results every time. And they're kind of phasing out my need to buy other pickles, Zach. I mean, yeah, I get my 2 Men in a Garden, but I supplement those, because I don't order from them every week or anything like that. So I do supplement. And my daughter has her own favorite brand. But I'm not really going to need to do that anymore because I'm having such great results on these. And I think you will too. Again, twomeninthegarden.com, $9.99 nationwide shipping. Get on these pouches and start trying your own experiments.
It's funny. I think we're going to have to figure out some sort of 2 Men in a Garden content to do while I'm up there for the Xavier game.
Yeah.
By the way, I did notice that Patrick Schulte got called up to the U.S. men's national team for games up until the 10th.
Yes.
Which is
coincidentally, the game on the 10th is in
Cincinnati. I know it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't get there.
And so that's what, like a day before you get in, 2 days before you get in?
2 days, yeah. No, a day, because I'm coming out Wednesday night. And then
so he's in Columbus, most of the time. So he'll probably go back to Columbus before coming back to Cincinnati a couple days later because it's only 100 miles away. But I was pretty nervous there.
I hope that he's going to play. I'm nervous that he won't play.
I think he should. I mean, it's
a big game.
The U.S. men's national team is the 10th, and then it's the 14th. That is the hell is real. Columbus Cincinnati rivalry game in Cincinnati. So I think he will play, especially there's 4 goalies on the roster. He might not even get minutes for the national team. So I have to think he will.
We're going to need Chapley to make sure Kip Keller's in the starting lineup for Cincinnati.
We do need to, because I just went to the FC Cincinnati game this weekend and he did not get in. So we can't risk it. We've got to
Yeah,
have
no.
Chapley put his thumb on the scale.
Um, let's talk more soccer. Current Billiken soccer. The polls, Pete.
Yeah, so the polls on the men's side will start with United Soccer coaches. The men were up to number 6, and in Top Drawer Soccer number 9. They were unranked to start the season, so that's a huge jump in 1 week going into the SMU game, Zach.
Yeah, it was. And unfortunately, it may be coming back to earth, Pete, as the Billikens dropped a 1-0 decision at SMU on Friday the 23rd. SMU was ranked 10th in the preseason coaches poll, but they dropped out of the top 25 after beating Air Force 1-0 and tying Oral Roberts 1-1.
Yeah, so SMU is a good team, right? I mean, they basically flipped with SLU being a
Yeah.
top 10 team, dropping out. SLU wasn't ranked, goes all the way up to the top 10. Um, it
Very
happens. I guess
reactionary in the polls.
very, very reactionary. I think they're still trying to figure out who's who, who are the best teams is kind of hard to figure out in the beginning of the season like this, especially now that these guys are having to deal with maybe more transferring than they've seen in the past. So I think these preseason polls probably mean a little bit less every year. But in this game, Zach, kickoff was pushed back by 35 minutes.
Was
So it
that
was
was
pretty
that
late.
due to was that due to the women's game before, I'm assuming?
Um,
No, it wouldn't
no,
be because
it was
they
at SMU. I think it was
yeah.
weather related.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if they
Yeah.
SMU played a women's game before or something.
I thought it was weather related,
Yeah.
but
I only kind of caught because I was watching the end of the women's game
yeah.
and then I didn't really check Twitter until I tried to turn it on and it wasn't on at like 9:05 and I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah, right. I know it, it didn't get started until really late. So,
Uh,
um,
but this one, Pete, it felt a lot. It felt very much like a game where you go into a ranked opponent's home stadium, and they are a good team, and they really take control of the game, and they
they re-
do control the pace and the play
yeah,
for 90 minutes.
they really did. SLU just couldn't get anything going. I mean,
Yeah.
the game's only goal, 48th minute, was Jalen Mitchell of SMU, scored off a rebound. But SMU outshot SLU 13-3.
Yeah.
Shots on goal 3-2.
Yeah.
SLU did get 8 corners to SMU's 5, but it just they could only manage one shot in the first half. They couldn't get anything in the offensive end. SMU meanwhile had 11 shots in the first half, but just didn't put much on goal. Right? It wasn't until that really early in the second half goal that they got something through. SLU was much better in the second half, Zach, but they still only managed 2 shots. And
Yeah.
of those 3 shots in the game, none of them actually came from their forwards. So it's crazy to me that we came out against Indiana looking so good, really better than we had all of last season, in my opinion. And then to come out in this game and just get nothing going upfield.
Yeah.
This was kind of the fear all along, right? Like we
It,
looked at the roster and we just weren't quite sure who the goal scorers were going to be.
it feels like these, the teams that haven't been able to sustain success. So like the not women's soccer, obviously women's soccer is really the one that doesn't do this, but it seems like, SLU soccer gets love in the polls and then they come out with an amazing performance. They get love in the polls and then they kind of shit the bed, for lack of a better word, with the hype. I don't know if that's just proximity bias that I'm watching the Billikens every time, or if
Yes.
that's an oddity.
Well, no, because last season they came in number 10 in the preseason, I believe.
Yeah,
Right. And then we saw them, they beat Butler, but then they lost at Lipscomb.
yeah,
They lost that game to SIUE at City Park, and then they lost at SMU. I don't know why we're playing there back-to-back years. So that all happens right in a row to start the season after we're ranked number 10.
yeah.
And you and I, when we were ranked number 10, I remember us saying like, oh, that's way too high.
Legacy ranking.
Totally. Because we lost 6 players to the draft. Totally new squad. There was no reason to have them high. Maybe if they get a few votes, that's one thing. So that was kind of, fool's gold for one. But number two, they just struggled to score all year. They really did. They only scored more than 2 goals once. If you want to pull out that Blackburn game, I don't think that really counts.
We could really use a Robbie Cristo.
Yeah, no kidding. And that was that Central Arkansas game, kind of in the middle of the A10 season. They beat Central Arkansas 3-1 at home, but never last year did they score more than 2 goals. And that was kind of the concern again coming into this season. Where do the goals come from? But I didn't think it was going to be like 3 shots in the entire game level, struggles, right?
You want to at least get some. You want to get some shots on net.
Yeah.
What you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott. I mean, it's a joke, but
they just couldn't get anything going in the attacking third whatsoever.
Yeah.
It was just, so it wound up being kind of a dull game, to be honest, just because it was frustrating. So I don't know. I mean, you hope it's a hiccup. You hope they've got a couple.
Yeah.
Well,
and again, this is a top 10 team on their home field. So again, I mean, they're good too. It's not, we're not. It's not like we're talking IUPUI, who we're going to talk about in a minute. But if you go to IUPUI or if you go to Xavier and lose 1-0, or that's a problem. And Xavier's not bad, but.
I think when you've got one team that maybe played a first game that was better than everybody's expectations, and another team that kind of underperformed expectations, but you're playing at their place, and you're talking about 2 teams that are kind of ranked but not quite sure where to be ranked yet. This was a coin flip of a game, and a 1-0 result there is not on its face a bad result. It just wasn't the performance that you wanted to see follow that Indiana game.
No. But I mean, these, again, we're still a young team. Obviously, I know there are older members, but again, I think this is a team that's going to have to grow a little bit and grow up really quickly because we need goals.
Yeah.
I mentioned IUI. That's actually IUPUI, or was IUPUI. Now it's just IUI. Monday the 2nd, it's the Labor Day game. I guess this has been a thing. I probably never paid attention to the day.
Yeah, I guess was the I don't think we played a Labor Day game last year because the Bronze Boot was on that Saturday.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe Labor Day. I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe that's a new thing. I don't know.
Don't know. They're acting like it's a thing either way, though.
Yeah. 7-7-5, 7-7-5 overall, 4-2-3 in the Horizon League last year. This will be the first meeting between these 2 schools. I don't really. I mean, I would assume the Billikens come away with this one, Pete. The Jaguars have made one NCAA tournament in their history in 2001, Pete, and they actually beat Marist in the play-in game, and then they lost to SMU. I'm pulling up their record so far. They're 2-1 this year heading into this game. They beat Incarnate Word 2-0, Houston Christian 1-0, and then dropped a 4-1 match to Bowling Green at home. So, I mean, I think this is a get-right game easily. They played an exhibition against Dayton, but I don't know what the score was. I guess that would be of some interest.
Yeah. Yeah, Zach, I mean, I think when you call this a get-right game, it's got to be that, right? Like, this is not a power. This is not a ranked team. It's at home. There's a lot of things working in our favor here.
This is like Furman coming in or whatever. Like, whoever comes in, there's always a purple team that comes in every year.
Right. That's supposed to be the confidence booster. So
Central Arkansas. Right. This is like Central Arkansas.
I think you're right, Zach. And hopefully this is the tune-up they need before the Bronze Boot game, because last year that is a game that did not go well for them.
No, it didn't, Pete. This will be the 40th meeting.
Amazing.
And kind of tell us what happened last year, Pete.
Yeah. So last year was, as I said, not a great result for SLU. The Cougars beat the Billikens 2-0 on goals from Mitchell Murphy and Nick Mensch. They were both beautiful goals, just dicing up the SLU defense.
Oh,
You and I were both there. Did not necessarily come away impressed with SLU. And actually, we're very impressed with SIUE. The crazy thing is, SIUE went undefeated last season, like all the way
yeah.
until, gosh, I mean, I guess they didn't technically lose a game until the NCAA tournament in the first round when they lost to Memphis 2-1,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate because they were 16-0-3 heading into that. And it would have been great to see them kind of make a tournament run as well. They had a couple of ties early in the season, games they probably should have won, all three of them actually. But they were a good team last year, but I think
Pete,
what's interesting is this year they don't look like a good team.
No, they look horrible. Like what is happening here?
Yeah,
A 4-0-2. Let's see. They one draw against Michigan State at home, and then at the OSU Wolstein Classic, they dropped 2 4-0 decisions to Ohio State and Dayton.
right.
Wow.
Yeah, not great results. I mean, Dayton's one of the better teams in the A10. We know that. But to lose back to back 4-0 after going undefeated until the tournament last season is yeah, yikes. This is a harder schedule. And after the Bronze Boot game, they will be going down to Memphis actually to play the team that took them out of the playoffs last season. But that's kind of frightening, Zach, because they've scored 1 goal over 3 games and they've given up 9.
Yeah,
Not great.
I'm wondering what's going on with this team. I wanted to go see. Maybe they were young. I'm really not sure. That is that's a wild drop in quality. It feels like. I mean, it is his 6th season, right? So you give him, you say 2 years to build, 4 years, 3 years to peak, and then
Yeah.
this is the letdown year, right?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, that could be. It could be that simple. I mean, Ohio State is a ranked team, so that's a tough
wild.
game.
That is
Dayton has, I think, they've scored a ton so far this year, right? I don't know that they've played anybody great, but they're scoring a lot. So they're a little bit dangerous as well. But yeah, that's a tough start.
yeah, last year, of course, 8,500. I'm not sure we see an expansion on that. But I really do hope that SLU learned its lesson.
Right.
Not the soccer team. Obviously, we hope the soccer team did. But I really hope that SLU goes all in on getting people out to this game on Sunday, the 8th.
Yeah. Yeah, promotionally, because last year was on a Saturday as well. And this is Sunday, and it's not before Labor Day, right? So there's not like there's a school night to contend with.
Yes.
I guess
there's a podcast recording night to contend with.
That's right.
On the women's side, Pete, we got 3 new commitments. 2 that we know of. The first one is a defender. She's local. Her name's Lucy Marsh. She went to Webster Groves High School. She played with Scott Gallagher. She plays with her sister, a defender, in the class of 2025 at Webster Groves High School. Pete, how about this next player out of Dallas?
Yeah, we got one out of Texas, like I had said earlier. SLU was saying we went down to Texas to get a commitment, and it's Leah Simpson, a forward/midfielder from Hebron High School in the Dallas area, and she plays for Sting Dallas Black for her club team. So they're working the Texas connections, I guess, which is probably somewhat new territory for them, right? Like I don't think we go down to Texas on this roster very often.
No, I really don't think so either. But I mean,
that might be the fact that the assistants have turned over. We're recruiting new areas.
Yeah, you kind of have to just go with whatever expertise your staff has. I think you're becoming a bigger program in a lot of ways, and it's to keep growing, you're going to have to find better players, and it's not always from the St. Louis area.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Yeah, and then the third one, another local player. We're not exactly sure. That hasn't been announced yet.
Yeah.
We haven't seen a commitment post from the player, so we don't want to, spoil
Yeah.
that for them, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So, don't know that yet, but as soon we'll talk about whoever it is last week, assuming we hear by then. But in the meantime, Zach, we're still ranked, still
Yes,
ranked.
that may change at the end of this week. I don't know, but we're sitting at 19th in the United Soccer Coaches Poll. That's up 4 spots from 23 last week. Top Drawer Soccer 15, holding steady with Top Drawer. They were not impressed. So I'm worried about that number this week. But they started it off really, really nicely with a 4-0 win at Missouri State on Thursday, the 29th. Um, do you know how many times these announcers mentioned that this was a brand new turf field?
It's funny too because they didn't need to because the
No.
first the first thing I thought when I brought up the broadcast was, oh, they got new turf because I've
Uh,
remembered the last time we played down there, I guess 2 years ago, their turf was it was a night game because I remember it being very reflective, but it looked
yeah.
very matted down and it played fast. I mean, like routine passes were skipping like half the way down the field. So it was a really chaotic pinball kind of game with the ball just zipping around everywhere. So he didn't even need they didn't need to say it. The turf looks great, by the way.
Yeah.
Happy for them. It plays a lot more like grass than that last field did. Thank God, because I think SLU performed a lot better. Just overall. Well, they won that game too, right? But I
Yeah.
but I just thought it was a cleaner game to watch. It was a lot less chaotic.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting on their broadcast how much they talked about how much turn like there's a new president, new athletic director, new a football coach, new basketball coach.
Yeah.
Like they got that new field, they've got all these facilities that they're working on. I just was shocked at how much Missouri State, after hearing about dropping or hiring Quanzo Martin, who is, I mean, that sounds like waving the white flag to me for your basketball program. But again, I don't know. I don't know ball, right?
Or hiring a big name and seeing what he's got left, what magic he's got left.
That's true.
But the this is all coming from football, right? I mean, they're
Yeah.
they're they're leaving the Valley, they're going to Conference USA, they're committing to the highest level, possible for them of football, even though it would be a pretty crazy stretch, to see them even in an expanded playoff anytime soon. But they at least have a remote shot at that someday. So they're committing to it, and it looks like they're going all in, with their whole athletic program. So good for them, because both women's and men's soccer are picked to win the Valley this year, in what I guess is their last year in the Valley. So um, whatever they're doing in football, I guess, is spreading out to other programs in positive ways.
Uh, Pete, let's talk about this game, but we got to set the stage. Missouri State entered this one 1-1-1, having lost 2-0 to Mizzou, beaten Tulsa 1-0, and tied SIUE 0-0. 8th minute, Lindsey Heckel gets a PK takes a PK because Hope Kim gets taken down in the box. And I mean, I'm questioning the visual acuity of these announcers.
Yeah, they claim not to see anything. It seemed pretty clear cut to me. I don't know.
The announcer, the color commentator was the biggest cliche machine
Yeah,
I've ever. It was brutal.
he was.
It was so like I just picture him wearing like tiny Umbro shorts and a white Umbro shirt, like with a big Umbro logo tucked in over like a gigantic belly. Like
You're describing.
with slicked back hair.
Yeah, so you're describing every '90s soccer coach from the St. Louis
Yes,
area.
exactly. Exactly. He's got on Adidas Copas. He's got
Yeah.
Copas on with the tongue flopping around. He's got
Uh-huh.
like socks like mid calf socks, but they're like rolled down. He doesn't even have actual soccer socks on. He's got like he's got like tube socks, but they're rolled down.
Yeah.
You know.
I love the visual there, Zach.
Yeah.
That's not a bad guess. He did kind of have a Springfield good old boy kind of
Well, the
accent.
funny thing is he's Norwegian.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's not even
The color,
American. It was very much like because I was picking up like New York, East Coast, like I
huh?
don't know, like
Maybe I was thinking of the play-by-play guy
no,
then.
I mean both of them were just off. Like, but he would throw in like he would miss um the way words are supposed to be said, like is
Yeah.
versus are. He would
Yeah, sure.
or what was and were or whatever. But yeah, so that was what kind of tipped me off on the foreign aspect. But I it was just it was nauseating. Just not because before just the constant stream of like ridiculous sayings and like
Yeah.
quips were just oh, it's brutal.
But throwing a lot of love the athletic department's way,
Oh,
to talk about.
they knew who butters their bread.
That's exactly right. So they never forgot about that. Even if they
I
missed,
my favorite part about it was the color commentator would anytime he would say the one guy would say something nice about the Billikens, he had to like, well, well, he'd be like, Emily Percelli is one of the best keepers in the Atlantic, is the best keeper in the Atlantic 10. Well, you got a great keeper over here in the Missouri Valley
yeah,
on Missouri, and you're like, shut the hell up.
right.
Like, we don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah, you don't have to
Yeah.
both sides a
Yes.
fact. Right.
Yes.
It's just say the fact.
Yep. But yeah, Hope Kim got taken down by the keeper in the box. Lindsay Heckel buries a PK in the 8th minute. Julia Simon sighting. I feel like it's rare, but it's impactful every time we see Julia Simon.
Yeah, it really is. Off a long ball into the area from Heckel. She plays the bounce with her left foot. Kind of takes a little hop first and just lobs it over the keeper into the net. It was a funny little play, Zach. But she timed it perfectly. It's not going to make the Sports Center top 10, but it was crafty in its own way. So you're right. Yeah, she's not on the score sheet a lot, but earned that one.
You mentioned Sports Center top 10, and I thought this one might have deserved an honorable mention. Emily Gaby scored this goal from Hannah Larson. It was a nice little give and go, and the finish was fantastic from Gaby to body control, able to bring her foot up about waist high and volley it in from a tough angle. Gaby obviously started the play, sending it over to Larson, and then Larson returned it to her right in front of the near post.
Yeah, that was trickier than it looked too,
Yeah.
right? Like that's the thing about Gaby is she's just got just really a good sense of finishing, right? Of just putting shots on goal.
Yeah.
And this one, the way that it was sent over to her, I don't think she was in front of the goal. She was almost in front of the post, right? But it looked like she would have been just wide of the goal where her body was. So to take her right foot, bring it waist high, and then kind of swing it around to angle the ball in, that was a tricky play.
If you're following along at home, that would have been a handball on anybody that isn't an elite goal scorer in college soccer.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, it was, I mean, and the goalkeeper had no chance. I mean, it was in the back. I mean, you could hear it in the announcer's voice. They just were like, oh, well, no,
Yep.
man.
Just matter of fact.
Yep. And there it's in the back of the net. 74th minute, Audrey Smith gets a goal from Nina Preusser. Izzy Lubert hit the crossbar from the left side. It bounced over to the right side. Preusser beats a defender to the ball before falling to her knees. The ball gets through to Smith, who turns and sends a shot into the keeper's hand, sending it high into the air before coming down on a defender's head right over the goal line and bouncing into the top of the net. A failed clearance off the line. And that's one of those where, Pete, you feel terrible for the defender because it looks really bad. But really, she had no other choice but to try and take the goofy, the football follies for you 90s kids.
Yeah, unfortunate play for her and the keeper. Honestly, it's just that ball took a few weird bounces. At no point along that stream of you describing that did the ball do what it most of the time would have done. It was just kind of a weird ball after another, but luckily Smith made something of it in the end. You just wish Izzy Lubert's shot had just kind of tucked under instead of hitting the crossbar and saved us all the time. But nonetheless, it was a goal. It was the result that mattered,
And
and it was dispiriting for Missouri State for sure.
So they didn't call this an own goal.
I don't think they did because when it went off the defender's head, at the end, she was like past. It
was gonna go in the goal if she didn't do anything. Okay,
she was just there as like a desperation.
I mean, I saw it. I remember it. I just didn't. My brain went right to the defender tried to do something with the ball and it went in the net. No, I forgot
she was behind the goalie trying to keep it out. So and like I think her feet were even behind the line, so there was just nothing she could do. But SLU outshot Missouri State 19-13. Shots on goal were 14-9. Corners, SLU 7, Missouri State had 4, and fouls. It was a pretty clean game. Missouri State 6, SLU 5. And Zach, this was another game where Percelli was just in complete control. And even though she actually did face some shots, you just never really felt worried with her back there.
No, not at all. And we're going to talk about her again. It's every game. I feel like we have to have a bullet point about Emily Percelli.
Yeah.
Because she is, again, he said it in the broadcast, the best goalie in the A10. She's one of the best goalies in the country.
Yeah, and I think the top drawer rankings had her at 31 or something like that. So she's a top few goalie already coming into the season in the minds of the national soccer writers, and is putting herself in the mix for the best in the country.
Yeah.
I thought she was outstanding in this game, and she made this game probably look easier than it was, because she did face 9 shots on goal.
Yeah.
And that's coming off a game where all 8 goals that she was in position for, she stopped. Or sorry, all 8 shots on goal. The only one that she let in was the one where they actually dribbled around her. So she's just been really, really solid and effective in that.
Yeah, I think it bodes well for SLU and how good she has been. But I think on one hand, it really shows where SLU needs to improve, because if you can get Percelli playing like she is, if you can keep her playing like she is, and get the defense where it needs to be, because I don't think the defense has been up to par with what we've come to expect from a Katie Shields team.
I would agree with that. I think she's seeing a lot more shots than she has in previous years. And that's true even of like kind of the tougher opponents we've played, because this has been a tough schedule. Even Missouri State, one of the weaker games in your non-conference, is a team that's supposed to win their conference. So there's really nothing easy here. There's not a quote unquote bye game on the schedule. SIUE is probably the closest thing to it. And they're not terrible either. So it's just, there's just a standard that we've kind of come to expect of this team that's increased year after year after year. And this year there's more stuff getting through. They've been a little sloppier back there. So why, I can't really say. A lot of the personnel is the same. It's just been tougher.
Yeah. Nimu Karani came in for the last 9 minutes. Looks solid. Missouri State. Hey, did we mention they have new turf?
We did already. Had that in there just to make sure.
Yeah, did you know it plays a lot more like grass?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really
it's
nice
amazing.
surface.
It's amazing.
Athletic department's doing a great job.
Yeah, they're building bright, shiny facilities.
Something special.
That's what you have to do. That's the most important thing.
Yep. Yeah. We already said they were picked to win the Valley, so they're not a bad team. But aside from Percelli, only 4 starters played over 45 minutes. 3 of those were defenders. So we did see a lot of, I guess that was part of it, right? The fact that they were mixing personnel here a little bit more. But we did see a lot of different combinations in this game. And it's always good to see some newcomers get some run. I actually thought Kagan Leonard was one that looked dangerous in this particular game off the bench. She had a few shots. So, pretty solid looking young player there as well, Zach.
Speaking of dangerous, we're going to talk about one of the most dangerous women in college soccer, and it's not Emily Gaby, Hannah Sawyer, or anybody in royal blue in this one. But Penn State beats our Billikens 2-1 on Sunday. On Sunday, the 1st of September. Penn State started the week number three in the country, or sorry, they started last week number 3 in the country. They dropped after losing to Virginia, who's now ranked number 7. They started the season at 4-0 with a 4-0 win over another top 10 team, Texas Tech. Getting back to the most dangerous woman in college soccer, and that's Caitlin McBean, aka Beanie McChimp, which is a reference that I did this last year, and the loyalist of listeners will recall that her name reminds me of Beanie McChimp, the cartoon character from the show, from inside the show Recess.
I mean, it wasn't McChimp.
Yeah, Beanie McChimp. Beanie McChimp.
All right.
So when I see Caitlin McBean, I have no choice.
I feel like I remember that from last year and not the actual show, which I've never seen. But
oh my god, Recess is great. Your kids.
I'll take your word for it.
No, you got to pass it along to the kids, man.
Zach, when as soon as I heard her name, I was just like, oh god, she's still there. I felt like after last year,
it was like 2 Holloway.
Well, it's not so much that as like, because we haven't played Penn State for the last 5 years or whatever, but
right.
It's more just that like when you saw her last year, you just said, oh, well, she's a pro after this year, right?
Yeah.
So we won't have to worry about her again, even though we're playing Penn State. And she's a redshirt senior, playing her 5th year of, I guess, 4th year overall, but 5th year of eligibility in college.
She'll get a 6th, I guess, from the NCAA.
She's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So she comes out in this game. SLU wasn't terrible to start the game, and we'll get to Katie Shields' comments later, but they made a mistake. She scores in the 3rd minute. She scores in the 13th minute off another mistake, and she had a really good chance between those 2 goals and put it a couple inches wide, maybe. So you're talking somebody who scored 2 and almost had 3 goals in the first 13 minutes of this game. And Penn State is a very good team. But man, without her, I have to think that we'd probably beat this team, right? I mean, she makes them so much different. She's that dangerous.
Absolutely crazy good. Again, I saw her name written on the score sheet, and I was like, oh, yeah, because I was over at field hockey
right away,
and my phone got a heat warning real quick. When I was trying to watch the game. So I ended up missing both the goals.
Yeah. I mean, so this is now, just as a reminder, like why we both have that PTSD. She had Penn State's first 2 goals in the Sweet 16 game last season. She assisted on their eventual game winner in like the 97th minute or whatever. She has now scored in 8 straight games going back to last season for Penn State. And a lot of those are multi-goal games. Just an incredible player, and I'm glad that she will not be back in college soccer again.
Yes. The Billikens really did. I mean, you said they didn't play terribly. They just kind of had a couple mistakes there. They played really well after that.
Yeah.
Elise Lee converted a PK to make it 2-1 after Hannah Larson was fouled in the area. Prior to that, the Billikens had a couple good chances in the first half, but Penn State's keeper came up with the big save.
She's good.
Yeah, she came up with 2 big saves, one in the 22nd and one in the 44th. Pete, talk about this penalty because I missed the actual penalty and goal.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty straightforward. It was Hannah Larson actually 3 times in the second half. Early in the second half, she's taken down in the box. They get a PK. Elise Lee converts, right? She's taken down in the box again in the 78th minute. Pretty straightforward call. But Emily Gaby's at the stripe this time and put the attempt just wide. It was one of those where she put it to the right. The keeper guessed correctly. And I don't think the keeper actually touched it. I
Mm.
think it actually just went wide.
Yeah.
So even if it had been on frame, the keeper may have had it because she had a really good jump on it. She guessed correctly. Just man, I kind of thought with Gaby there that we were going to tie this game, and
When in doubt, kick the living piss out of the ball.
that's right, and just put it on frame, right?
Yes, just
Make
hammer it.
make her make a save, give your teammates a chance for a rebound, whatever. But then Zach Larson was brought down a third time in the area, 80 something minute. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but it went uncalled. And I wonder if it was one of those things where the ref just goes, I can't do it a third time because it was a pretty similar level of foul to the others, like not like a card. So it's not like the kind of foul that was, demanded a yellow because of excessive contact or anything like that. It was all the same level foul. So I'm not exactly sure why the third one didn't count other than the fact that he just wasn't going to do it three times in one game, right? Or especially in one half.
Yeah, I mean it's always tough. That's the old we talked about VCU, right? Playing basketball and they foul enough that you can't call everything. So
Right, exactly.
um let's see. Uh it's rare you talk about it, the losing keeper. But again, this is another game where Percelli has made more than one outstanding save to rob an opponent, Pete.
Yeah, she did. And we already talked about the other keeper and her first half stops, but Percelli really kept them in the game as this one went along. Especially after it became 2-1. As much as I think SLU looked like the better team overall in the second half, Penn State had some really effective counters. They came quick, and when they have McBean, all it takes is one other good player, and they have two people who are really dangerous going down to the other end. And what was her name? Fusco or something like that. I think she's a transfer from Tennessee who came in, and she seems like a really nice complement to McBean up top. And those two together, I think, were really effective. But there was Percelli to stop them a couple times, made really tough saves. The one in particular that I thought was 3-1, and um, I think I think our friend Bill McDermott did too. He was pretty certain that that was going to be 3-1. So she kept us in it, and unfortunately, just couldn't make things work at the other end.
Yeah. The shots were 16 to 15 Billikens. Penn State had 8 shots on target. Billikens only had 4. Corners were 9 to the Billikens. Penn State had 4. Fouls, Billikens had 10. The Nittany Lions was 7. Pete, I think the Billikens, held their own in this one. This is one of those games where if you are who you think you are, you hold serve at home, and the Billikens just did not show up on time for this one, unfortunately.
No, and Shields, she, like we said before, she actually thought the first few minutes were the best start SLU had this season, but they just made those two mistakes early, and that Penn State capitalized on both.
Mhm.
So it's a shame when you see them continue to get good chances even after you're outplaying them in the second half. What Shields said was, when we had them on the ropes in the second half, we've just got to find ways. We had 16 shots and they only had 3 saves. So that's a lack of sharpness and quality in the final third. She also mentioned that they had 9 corner kicks and just couldn't get anything good off of them. She did call out Smith, Larson, and Lay as having great games. Zach, I thought this was a little salty, but I guess they deserved it. On their X account, the Penn State women's soccer team posted payback denied in their final post for the game that showed the 2-1 final score. So that was a little brutal, whatever. They got it. But I do think this overall game was more even than the game up at Penn State last year, even though that did go into overtime.
Yeah.
Um, Penn State just kind of looked like the better team, and SLU just happened to score goals to get them back in it. It was a crazy game. It was a fun game, but they looked more like a peer this time around. And I didn't think they were totally outplayed. I do think without McBean, SLU wins this game. So it's a shame that it comes down to that, but I don't know. I agree with you, Zach. I think There's things to clean up, but they at least feel like they belong.
Yeah, they do. Next up for them, they will play Friday the 6th at Creighton. Last season, they were 4-9-5, 2-7-1 in the Big East. Last time out, the Billikens beat them 4-1. Since that beatdown, Creighton made a change at the head coaching position in Jimmy Walker. He comes to Creighton after 2 Mid-American championships and 4 years at Bowling Green State University. He has a career record of 176, 95, and 26. Sounds like Creighton has their program headed in the right direction. They sit at 2-1 right now with wins over Western Michigan and Iowa State and a loss to Minnesota. They play Nebraska on Labor Day. Azumi Manrique leads the Jays with 3 goals, which is half the goals they've scored this season. No one else has more than 1 goal, Pete. Talk about this game at City Park. Remind us what happened last time out and what to expect from SIUE.
So it's Sunday the 8th. Last time out, SLU dominated the Cougars 5-1. Goals from Kelly, Groark, Miller, Stram, and DeLuca.
Scorching hot day, too.
Yep, very hot. SIUE currently stands at 1-1-2 on the season after a 6-1 win over Chicago State, a 1-0 loss at Purdue Fort Wayne, and then ties at both Omaha and Missouri State. Savannah Defini leads them with 3 goals and an assist, although all of those goals and the assist came in that Chicago State blowout. Their 4 other goals have come from 4 different players. So hard to say really that there's a focal point on this team necessarily. But yeah, it's a game that they got to win, Zach.
Pete, I did a little, I took a look back. We're going to talk some field hockey because not only did I get to my first field hockey game at the new facility, I did a look back at SLU Field Hockey to see what they were doing in 1998, the last time they played a match on campus. And this is wild stuff, Pete. Strap in.
Yeah.
The head coach was Kathy O'Brien. They went 3-17. Not all that surprising. Their only regular season win was a 9-0 win versus Bellarmine, who was Division II at the time or lower.
Right. Lower division.
And they actually hosted, as the last official act of an on-campus facility, then and you're gonna when I read this conference name, you're gonna be like, what in God's name? It is the Northeast Pacific Conference.
Yes.
And in this conference tournament, they beat Davis Elkins, whose logo could be confused for Duquesne, by the way. Actually, I had to Google it to make sure it wasn't like an old name for Duquesne. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was like, well, like Harissa Teachers College.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And Pacific 1-0 in 2 overtimes for their last win at an on-campus facility. But they lost to Stanford and Cal, which brings up the point that this conference was ridiculous. It had Missouri State, Pacific, Stanford, and Cal in it. That was on our schedule. Along with Davis and Elkins. And yeah, I mean, I have no idea. It is bizarre.
It makes no sense whatsoever.
No.
I can't make heads or tails of that. Davis and Elkins College, by the way, is in West Virginia.
Yes.
So you've got colleges from Missouri, California, West Virginia in that league. How do you do that?
I have no idea.
So weird.
4-1 loss to open the season. Their first actual home opener, as we mentioned, since 1998. A loss to Central Michigan on Friday the 30th. The Chippewas scored the first goal to take a 1-0 lead, and they held that after the first quarter. Josefina Perez tied it in the second off an assist from Olivia Smith. Then the Chippewas scored 2 more in the third and 1 more in the fourth to ice it. The Billikens outshot Central Michigan 12-11. CMU had a 5-4 edge in penalty corners, but both teams had 7 shots on goal. Pete, I feel like this is a problem. This has always been a problem with this field hockey team. And I mean, again, talking about field hockey, which has been, not good for a long time, but it feels like we see a lot where the Billikens are offensively kind of dangerous, but not dangerous enough. Where they'll get a lot of shots and a lot of shots on goal, but they just will not convert.
I remember that from last season, Zach. It felt like statistically they never got embarrassed.
Yes.
but then they almost never won, right?
Right.
So it's a pretty weird thing. And without being able to watch all of these games, it's
Yeah.
just kind of I don't know. It's just kind of tricky to me. By the way, this almost kind of played out like a uh, an MTE or something like that
Yes,
because
it did. It did. It
Central
did.
Michigan and Bellarmine played one another
Yes, it did. And this
at SLU.
This is then, I mean, look again, it points to another reason why an on-campus facility and a facility on a piece of land you own is nice.
Yeah,
You get to maybe, I don't know if they charge for, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if
right.
it's like a hosting fee or anything like that, but I mean,
No, yeah,
if it's not an MTE, it's just a field that you're playing on, right?
right. And
But it
so
was kind of an MTE in that all teams played each other. So,
and it was all it's on consecutive days too,
yes.
right? So Bellarmine wound up losing to Central Michigan 2-1 in overtime. In that game, it's crazy. Central Michigan is now 2-0 in the regular season, which is more wins than they had last season when they went 1-16 on the year. So
Well,
it's a shame for SLU. I bet they thought they might have a team that they could, christen their new facility with a win,
mhm.
and it just didn't work out like that.
The Billikens lost Sunday 2-1 to Bellarmine in OT. This was truly heartbreaking, Pete, this loss. I got out there, as I mentioned, and man, I really do. I was so excited to see the facility, and it was fully everything that I had hoped it would be, I guess. It was everything that you need, right?
Mhm.
I mean, obviously there are things that still need to be added, but I mean, it's beautiful. It's well done. I mean, the seating area is gonna, there's quite a bit of seating. I think there's gonna be areas where you can sit outside the fence. Like, you'll be kind
Mhm.
of on the sidewalk, but I mean, I think they should definitely just grass that area over and forget a sidewalk, honestly.
Yeah.
Right at the top, it's like right above where people are sitting is like a dirt area. But again, yeah, they had concessions out there. They had a real announcer out there, someone who knew what they were doing, and
Yeah.
they had a full kind of program of how to read, PA reads and all that stuff. So I mean, this is great. It was balls hot out there. There is not a lot of shade over there.
Yeah.
A lot of people had umbrellas to block the sun, uh, which came in handy actually at halftime when they turned on the water jets to spray down the field. And in the most SLU fashion ever, the wind coming from the north, I think. No, south, north, coming from the north.
Shoto would be the north side of the
Yes,
field.
coming from the north,
Yeah.
carried the water, not just a little bit into the crowd, like beyond the crowd, up on the dirt behind, like into the trees, what little trees there were. Absolutely ridiculous. The
Yeah.
funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. People were scattering, and it was funny. I hope not too many people were pissed. But because it was a lot of water. A
Yeah.
lot. Like it wasn't just like, you get that little spritz from like as you're walking by a fountain. No, 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 no. Oh, sir. This was a monsoon that nobody expected.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because they called out I was reading the preview for this
Yeah.
weekend, and they said surrounding the field are
Yes.
6 high pressure water cannons,
Yes.
which will water the field prior to
That is,
and
yes.
at halftime of matches to ensure the best playability.
Yes.
Bleachers accommodating a capacity of 300 fans are located on the south side of the field, but never in my mind did I think those water cannons would actually also water the bleachers.
Yes, no, I didn't. I mean, like, so the way it was explained to me was there's 6 watt. You said 6, right? You already said
6.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So there's one at each corner of the field on the ends,
Mhm.
and then 2 at the half line on each side.
Right.
And it was the one shooting, I believe, from the left
The other.
corner. So not Shoto side, the bleacher side, up by the scoreboard. It was that
Yeah.
one spraying that the wind caught the stream and just blew it onto the entire bleachers.
Unreal.
But yeah, um, I think it's got a lot. It's got some work to be done to make it look nice and fully accommodated. But I mean, those are little things, I think, and I think they'll get there. They need some
Yeah.
shade desperately for the players. I don't know how they accomplish that, but they're going to need to do that. But it was a 2-1 OT loss, as I mentioned. Bellarmine's Annie Malloy opened up the scoring in the second quarter off an assist from Anna Crump. Josefina Perez tied it in the third with an assist from Olivia Smith. Luna Tunke sealed the win for Bellarmine in overtime, assisted by Anna Crump. So essentially it was essentially a Bill Buckner situation here, Pete.
Yeah.
The ball was kind of softly rolling towards the goalkeeper. And I thought, she might have had a tough game last week, if I recall correctly. And but anyways, the ball was rolling softly to her, and she kicked her foot out to kick it aside. And when she kicked out, she kicked the turf. And the first instance of a turf monster on this new field. I think they need to rip it up and start over again.
Oh, brutal. I mean, I do feel bad for her. And I guess I will say this is a freshman, right? Like her name's Abby Shallow. She's a freshman. This was her first start. Actually, she didn't play in that previous game. Previously, it was Carrie O'Donnell, who's a sophomore. And I know the goalkeeper they had for the past few years, who was actually pretty good, graduated, right? So they're looking to figure out who her replacement is. And I just feel you got to feel really bad for a freshman making the first start. And that's the overtime goal that decides the game. And it's just a fluky thing she's probably done 1,000 times that just winds up not working out this time. And that sucks. I hate that.
Next up, Ball State comes to St. Louis on Sunday the 8th. Pete, I think, well, let's run through the preseason poll for us real quick, and then I want to say something about kind of the field.
Yeah. So SLU was picked to finish 8th out of 8 in the league this year. Maybe they're overlooking the new home turf advantage, but who knows? Davidson's kind of always within reach for SLU, and then maybe Lockhaven and LaSalle. The bottom half of the conference can be a little weak. St. Joe's was picked to finish first and UMass second. They're both pretty good programs.
Yeah, that's it. No, St. Joe's is a top 10 team.
Right. And then Josefina Perez was named to the preseason all-conference team. So a little bit of love for one player, and she's got a couple goals already this season.
Yeah, I think I think this is going to be an investment that down the road is going to pay dividends, obviously. I don't think this year, I mean, it's going to be the same old team. I think you're going to see, I mean, maybe they get a little bit better based on being able to do skill work whenever they feel like it.
Right.
But I think, for so long with an off-campus facility, the players had to be the base of the program.
Yeah.
Now the base of the program is a facility, and now you can get those local players to maybe stay home and build that base from St. Louis. And I think with a team with a really, a tough budget restriction, I think you got to get those kids to stay home.
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
Volleyball, Pete, tough weekend for the Bills. They were picked to finish 5th in the conference. Dayton was unanimous number 1 with 10 first place votes. Loyola, VCU, Davidson were picked to finish 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in that order. They also got their first commitment for the class of 2026, but we don't have a name yet on that one. They played 3 matches at the A-State Invitational at Arkansas State. Pete, they lost their first one 3-0 to Ole Miss on Friday the 30th.
Yeah, it was a tough one. 25-14, 25-20, 25-19. The first set was close until Ole Miss decided to go on an 11-2 run to finish it. They then finished the second with a 6-1 run and had a late 7-1 run to put the third one out of reach. So all of them were, they're starting fairly even, and then they just kick into SEC mode. Delaney Rice had 9 kills, and SLU had 3 players with 12 digs apiece. Look, Ole Miss is a bottom half SEC team, but the SEC team or the SEC conference has 6 teams in the top 25, and several more receiving votes. It is one of the top volleyball conferences. Texas is in the SEC now, and they're just an elite program. So even your bottom half SEC schools are going to be a tall order for the A10. And all three of these started out looking promising and then just kind of got out of hand. But Zach, they were able to bounce back against SEMO on Friday.
Yeah, they were. And I feel as though SEMO has given the Billikens trouble kind of in the past. And it was kind of frustrating. Or you would have they lost 3-1 to SEMO last year in Kansas City. And then, of course, under Ken Miller, I believe they dropped their SEMO match in his last. They didn't play him, I guess. But yeah, SEMO has always been one of those where you got to beat them. They're OVC, but they tend to play above kind of their conference. And they did 3-1 win for SEMO on Friday the 30th, 24-26. They dropped the first set. So nice bit of resilience there from the Billikens to come back and take a 25-23, 25-22, 25-16 final 3 sets. SEMO obviously took that first set really close, and the Billikens won the next 3, including a runaway 4th. Addie Bruce had 27 kills, 11 digs, double for Bruce, the freshman. She's outstanding. I think she's as advertised.
Yeah, I really think so. I mean, in the early going, she's really she's living up to her billing, Zach. I think Beatty's pretty excited.
Abby Lynn had a double-double, 39 assists, 11 digs. Rogers led the team with 21 digs and 4 service aces. And then they dropped 5 sets to Arkansas State. And man, this one just seems like, I think this is one of those that you win at home.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. 21, 25, 25, 21, 25, 16, 15, 25.
That's one that just hurts so bad.
Yeah. And then 11, 15 is the last one. So after a really close first set, SLU got out to early leads in the second and third and won each fairly comfortable, with Arkansas State not really getting to within more than 3 or 4, or less than 3 or 4, I guess I should say. And then they take the fourth without really being threatened, right? So the last frame was close, 12-11, before ASU took the last 3 points to clinch. Bruce had 21 kills, Rogers 21 digs, and then Lynn had 43 assists and 10 digs. Kayla Jansen led SLU with 8 blocks. So both Lynn and Bruce were named to the all-tournament team. They both had really, really good performances over those 3 matches, Zach. But yeah, you'd like to get 2 out of 3 of those, I think. And unfortunately, SLU was only able to get 1.
Next up, they'll host the Billiken Invitational this weekend. Army on Thursday, Xavier on Friday, and Illinois on Saturday. Pete, we're going to run down cross country real quick and then head out. The Mizzou cross country opener Friday the 30th, Gans Creek cross country course in Columbia, Missouri. By the way, that place was sick. Did you see pictures of that?
It looked really nice.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Where do you find cross country courses?
It's just,
I thought you just run through an 18-hole golf course. That's all. That's what a real that's a real cross country race.
Exactly.
The women's 5K, 4 of the Billikens' top 5 finishers were newcomers. Utah Valley transfer Emily Morden led the Bills with a 5th place finish in a time of 18:02. Originally from the town of Timboon in Victoria, Australia, about 2.5 hours 2.5 hours from Melbourne near the south coast. Freshman Emery Mayfield came in 9th at 18:24. Star Scott, sophomore, ran 18:51, and 2 freshmen rounded out the top 10, with Molly Sewell running 19:05 and Clara Gillen going 19:24. Pete, over the men's.
Yeah, in the 6K, junior Lucas Ivanowski led SLU with a time of 18:37.2, good for 5th overall in the event. Freshman Manny Vela finished 6th with a time of 18:42.6, and then junior Tyler Schweitzer finished 9th with a time of 18:51.3, followed by John Gierich in 11th at 19:33.2, and Brady Huggins in 12th at 19:37.3. So Seems like a pretty good showing overall for the Billikens here.
Yeah, next up will be the Billiken Cross Country Invitational, Saturday the 21st at St. Vincent Park. That's gonna do it. That's a big episode for fall season, Pete. That's a lot of Billiken stuff to talk about.
A lot of Billiken stuff, Zach. But fall sports are in full swing.
Yeah,
There's
it's great.
A nip in the air. It's getting down below 90.
Sir, I was sweating today.
I know I was being very sarcastic.
Oh, what
we
the
had
hell?
we had kind of a false fall start a couple weeks ago, and that has been very much
A
erased.
fall start?
Yes,
Okay.
clever.
Got
Two
it.
L's.
Yeah.
Not a verbal joke, but
No.
but yeah, on that note,
All right, that'll do it. Go Bills.
go Bills.